Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today, we're discussing the Omega Seamaster Professional 300m Chronograph, a true charter member of the 300m family. This classic from the early 1990s can be seen and purchased on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this beautiful wave dial Omega Seamaster, with additional accessories included in the sale, high-resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Omega Seamaster 300m diver. Now, in 1993, this was the look of the future. A new watch succeeding the older Seamaster 200m family. Within 2 years, the quartz variant would appear in time-only form on the wrist of a newly minted 007 Pierce Brosnan, and shortly thereafter, Bond would upgrade Q-style to a full-blown mechanical chronometer variant, but this original chronograph still possesses all of the allure and enduring style that made that original watch a sensation. It's also important to note that as of 2018, the model is celebrating its 25th anniversary with a full-line refresh courtesy of Omega, proving that this design, perhaps more than any other Seamaster ever, has true staying power, finally bringing the Seamaster on par with Rolex's Submariner for timeless design and enduring style. Just think of how many different Seamaster designs there were between the Seamaster 300 of 1957 and 1982. That's the same time span that passed between this watch in 1993 and today. Now, the watch is handsome and enduring because it fits well on a broad range of wrists and looks good on them. You can see that 41.5 millimeters across the round of the case is the measurement from 9 to 3, not including the helium escape valve, crown guards, or chronograph pushers. Quite a few appurtenances about this case, but it wears easily on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It's also reasonably compact across the wrist. As you'll measure without the solid end links, it is 48.9 millimeters, and I actually believe this watch looks great on a strap or a bracelet. Either one is a fantastic choice, but if you do wear it on a bracelet, that distance across the wrist increases because of the solid end links to 55 millimeters. Nevertheless, you will have no trouble wearing this watch on a wrist as small as 14.5 centimeters circumference. Even with the bracelet, throw it on a strap, you could probably step down to 14 centimeters circumference. It is thick, however. The watch is 16.4 millimeters thick, but it has a diesel ambiance about it. It looks burly and muscular rather than bulky and awkward. Also, the watch features a bracelet that was arguably the standard in the industry in its day. The only sense in which it's aged is that it appears a little bit like a cross between a dress bracelet and a sports watch bracelet, accentuated by the rather small intermediate links with a polished contrast and the somewhat rounded off shoulders. I happen to like watches that look their era, not their age. I don't want a watch that looks worn. I want a watch that's redolent of the time in which it was made. 1950s dive watches have that, and this 90s Seamaster certainly has the same effect and ambiance about it. A rugged bracelet you could see back at the time because of Omega's price point. Pins and sleeves were used for sizing. Nevertheless, you can also see that the ergonomics were superb, the smaller individual links making this silkier than Rolex's Oyster bracelet from the same time, and with rounded channels between the links and plenty of gaps, it both aerates the wrist on a hot day and does not pinch skin or pull hair. Now, you can see that the clasp was always one of the highlights of this watch. Solid and milled out, this forced Rolex to rethink how it did clasps. Trigger release instead of clamshells. Big, burly, solid extensions rather than stamped plates. This was the clasp that brought about the modern era of Rolex bracelets and clasps. Again, it all comes back to this watch and this model family. Now, you'll also note that Omega was doing solid lugs before Rolex was. No perforations here. This one is all steel. You'll also note that it features a handsome contrast about its finish. This watch, minimally if ever refinished, exhibits all of the original strong creases, geometries, and lug volumes that you remember from the early 90s. Satin finish on the flank, polished on the bevel. You can see there is a satin finish about the periphery of the bezel. This is not the 259980. This is the 2598, which features a spectacular mirror finished bezel with lacquer about all of its indices, calibrations, and numerals beautifully sunken below the plane of the bezel. There's no faking condition with these. As with Rolex Daytona models since 1988, the lacquer in the wells of the bezel essentially lets you know how the watch has been treated and how the watch has been refinished, because once it's gone, you can't replace it. You can refinish a case, you can't replace the lacquer. This one, beautifully full, has deep individual recesses for every calibration and numeral. It looks pretty much as it must have when it came out of the case in 1993. Now, of course, the helium escape valve, always standard on Rolex Sea Dwellers in the modern era, and not so much on the Submariners, was one of the standout features of this family, the 300 m. You got on the entry-level model what Rolex forced you to upgrade to obtain, the helium escape valve for saturation divers. Who uses it? I have yet to meet one person who can say truthfully that they've ever used that feature, but you know what? James Bond used it as a remote control grenade. So it's a great conversation point on that basis, film trivia, and the fact that you've got performance that you'll never need, a la Ferrari, only so much more affordable. Now, luxury is about getting more than you need, and so you have that beautiful wave-style dial that I'm trying to highlight here. This was something that partisans of the model absolutely loved. It was also one of the standout design features, along with the basic profile of the case and bracelet and the skeleton-style hands. These features have proven so enduring that they continue 25 years later on the 2018 Baselworld debut models. You'll also note the slight countersink for the counters that changes the plane of focus, and there's been just a little bit of aging about the sub-register hands and the tip of the seconds hand for the chronograph. Originally red, they are now orange, having aged gracefully, I may add. The dial is all super luminova, so it's lost none of its luminescence. This wasn't a tritium dial model. You can see all of the text is beautifully confined to the 3 o'clock position, which actually serves to aesthetically balance the dial and create a bit of a cruciform symmetry that's quite handsome. Now, these are actually screw-down look chronograph pushers. You don't need to screw them up or screw them down to operate the watch, so that's a boon for those who don't want to have to pick their moments to use the chronograph and just want it to be ready at a moment's notice to activate. So they have the shouldered look of screw downs to appear symmetrical with the screw down crown and its crown guard, but they're always ready to operate so long as you're not submerged. Now, it does feature a conventional screw down crown that is exactly as it appears. Pull it to extremity and you can still stop the balance with hacking seconds, halt the seconds hand, synchronize to your dive timer, or if you're Bond, your mission timer. There's a quick set for the date. The watch is a Omega caliber 1154, which was a 25 joule Omega adapted 44-hour power reserve COSC chronometer certified Valjoux 7750. So it's got that delightful little rotor wobble that is wonderfully evocative of the 7750 experience, but this is a COSC standard and somewhat upgraded model that's also uniquely decorated to Omega's standards. So if for whatever reason you ever pop the case back off, if you're exceptionally ambitious or skilled, or your watchmaker simply gives you a glimpse, these were finished to a higher standard than stock 7750s. And the watch with 300 m water resistance remains ready for duty, stripped for action and ready for battle, whether you are Bond or simply an armchair warrior. This classic will never die. 25 years young, you can see and you can purchase the original Seamaster 300 m Chronograph COSC chronometer on our website. Bright like Bond, the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 m Chronograph. This is why I say it's wonderful that these old Omega divers used luminova from the beginning rather than tritium. 25 years later, still a shining star.